Welcome back to the Justice Drop Legal Bars, Rights, and Real Talk. This is the podcast where we break down complex legal issues and give you the inside scoop on navigating the criminal justice system. I'm your host, Jamal Kersey. I'm a criminal defense attorney based in San Diego, California, with over 15 years of experience. And today we're tackling a topic that no parent ever wants to have to face, but absolutely needs to be prepared for. And this is what to do if your son or daughter has been arrested. And whether it's a simple misunderstanding or a more serious accusation, having your child arrested can be one of the most stressful experiences as a parent. And you might be feeling overwhelmed, unsure of what steps to take, and afraid of what could happen next. But today, I'm here to break it down for you in five essential steps. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to handle the situation, protect your child's rights, and hopefully find some peace of mind. So let's dive in. Now, as a parent, your immediate reaction to hearing your child has been arrested might be panic. And that's natural. But one of the most important things you can do in that moment is to stay calm. I know that's easier said than done, but it's critical. And why? Well, because the decisions you make in the minutes and hours after an arrest can impact the outcome of the case. First things first, we want to gather as much information as you can. You need to know where your child is being held and what charges they're facing. Now, the police may or may not give you a lot of details, but anything you can get in terms of the location, the arresting agency, and the type of charges will help you in the next steps. Most counties will have a sheriff's website where you can look up who's actually been arrested. Now, here in San Diego, you can Google who's in jail San Diego, and the website will pop up. And you would put in your child's first and last name, and you'll see their information. It'll give you the date and the time they were booked, the charges they were booked under, and the next court date. Now, depending on the situation, you may hear directly from your child by way of a phone call from the jail. Now, if your child is able to speak with you, remind them do not discuss details of the incident over the phone because the calls are usually recorded and anything said about the case can later be used against them in court. And we've seen cases where people have made admissions on jail calls and they basically filled in what would otherwise be holes in the DA's case. And we don't want to be doing the DA's job for them, right? You also want to make sure that they don't talk to anyone in jail about the details of their case. Now, the reality is, guys in there are throwing around details about their cases left and right, but just because everyone's doing it doesn't make it a good idea. Jailhouse snitches are a real thing. A guy wouldn't hesitate to have the benefit of having a couple of years knocked off their sentence by wearing a wire and getting your son to talk about his case. The key takeaway here is to stay calm, gather facts, and remember that you're going to need accurate information to move forward. Now, let's talk about something even more critical, and that is your child's rights. Can't stress enough. Knowing your rights, and more importantly, knowing when and how to use them is critical. Every parent needs to make sure that their child understands the two most important rights that they have when they are arrested, and that's the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. If your child's been arrested, remind them to exercise their right to remain silent. And this should probably be a conversation that you have before they're in this situation, right? But this means no talking to the police, no trying to explain their side of the story, and no signing anything without an attorney present. I don't care if they're innocent, they did nothing wrong, or if they actually did what they're arrested for. They should not say anything. And this can be hard in real time. If they're not prepared, then a bullying bad cop might intimidate them into talking. But even worse is the good cop who makes you feel like you're best friends, and all the while they're just looking to bury you. Your right to remain silent is a constitutional right. That means it's a big deal. And so don't just give up your rights. At the end of the day, anything they say can and will be used against them in court. I know we hear this on the movies and TV all the time, but this is real. And it's a natural instinct to want to clear up misunderstandings. But unfortunately, in the legal system, trying to explain yourself often makes things worse. We've seen innocent people's words get get twisted and used against them. And there's nothing worse than an innocent person under investigation trying to cooperate with authorities because they're not a criminal, only to have their words flipped and turned into something incriminating, right? The police are not your friend. You have to act accordingly. Your child has the right to legal representation. Even if they're unsure of whether they need an attorney, it's always better to have one. A lawyer is going to guide them through the process, protect their rights, and ensure that they don't say or do anything that could hurt their case. It will likely be your child's very first time dealing with the police and the criminal justice system, but an experienced lawyer will know exactly what to do and will properly advise you and your child as to how to proceed given the circumstances. So, if the police want to ask your child anything, they should say, I am exercising my right to remain silent. I do not want to make any statements without my lawyer present. And at that point, any questioning should cease. So, in short, knowing these rights and using them properly can be the difference between a dismissal and a conviction. Now that we've covered this, let's move on to what parents should know next. Once you've been made aware that your child has been arrested or even under investigation, it's time to take action. The most important thing you can do at this stage is to contact an experienced criminal defense attorney immediately. And I can't emphasize this enough. Why is this so critical? Because the sooner you have legal representation, the sooner the attorney can start working to protect your child. They'll be able to speak to the police on your child's behalf, work on getting them released, and start building a defense strategy. Choosing the right attorney matters as well. You want someone who is experienced in handling cases like your child's, someone who knows the local court system, and someone who will communicate with you every step of the way. Sometimes people can be intimidated by how much legal representation will cost, and this is an understandable concern. But the reality is, who you hire matters. I just recently talked about a case we took over where a lawyer was convincing my client to sign for 6 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And once we got in and did a complete and thorough investigation, we exposed to the DA that they had the wrong guy and he was immediately released. Now, I'll admit, our firm's services are not the cheapest in town, but that's because we're a whole team. And I believe it truly takes a full team effort to get the best possible results. Fortunately, we offer various financing options, and this makes our top notch representation accessible for most budgets. And with some plans, you can pay as little as a couple of $100 a month. In the end, you must remember that time is of the essence. Getting an attorney involved as quickly as possible can make a big difference in how things turn out. Now, let's talk about the next step, which would be getting your child out of custody. Now that you've secured legal representation, the next concern is going to be getting your child out of custody. And in many cases, this is going to involve bail. And for those of you who are not familiar with how bail works, let me break it down. Bail is essentially a financial guarantee that the accused will show up for their future court dates. The sheriff will set a bail amount based on the charges the person is booked under. The amount basically depends on the seriousness of the charges. In some situations, a person can be held on no bail, meaning they can't get out of custody. Eventually, they'll have a hearing in front of a judge. The first hearing is called the arraignment, and a person has a right to an arraignment within 48 hours of their arrest. Now, this does not include weekends and holidays. The judge will address bail at the arraignment. As defense attorneys, when appropriate, we will argue for reduced bail. In some cases, we can argue for a release on your child's own recognizance, which would mean that no bail is required at all. The bail amount is generally going to depend on factors like your child's ties to the community, their criminal history or lack thereof, and the seriousness of the charges. Now, we always want to get the bail amount as low as possible for our clients, but if the case is serious enough, sometimes the judge will either increase bail or deny bail outright. If you have the full amount of bail, you can post that amount and your child will be released from custody while awaiting their court date. And you ultimately get that money back once the case is over. However, most people take advantage of a bail bond service. Bail bonds companies typically charge a non refundable fee, and this is usually around 10% of the total bail amount. Fortunately, most bail bonds companies allow for payment plans, making it easier to get someone out in a jam. I know this part of the process can be overwhelming, especially if money is tight, but having an experienced attorney can help navigate these options and work to get your child out as soon as possible. All right, now you've got your child out of custody, but the journey obviously is not over. We do need to talk about the long term consequences of an arrest. So, lastly, it's important to understand that an arrest, regardless of how minor the charges may seem, can have long term consequences on your child's future. This includes their education, job prospects, and reputation. That's why it's so important to take every charge seriously and to work with your attorney to minimize these impacts as much as possible. If your child is a student, they could face disciplinary actions from their school, including academic suspension. We had a client who was a college student get kicked out of school while his charges were pending. And fortunately, we were able to get his case dismissed and he was eligible for reinstatement. But you can see how criminal charges can completely derail a career. And for those who are already in the workforce, a criminal record can make it difficult to find or keep a job. But don't lose hope because all is not lost. A good attorney will work to resolve the case in a way that minimizes the long term damage. This could involve negotiating the best possible plea deal, seeking alternative sentencing options, or even getting the charges dismissed. In some cases, your child's record may be eligible for expungement down the line, and this can help mitigate the impact of the arrest on their future. In the end, while an arrest is certainly a serious matter, it doesn't have to be the end of your child's future. With the right legal representation and support, they can move past this and continue on their path to a positive life. We currently represent a college student who made a mistake that he instantly regretted. He was contacted by detectives, and fortunately, he had the presence of mind to contact his father, who then contacted us before his son spoke to the detectives. And naturally, both of them were worried about what would happen next. We were able to navigate the dealings with the law enforcement and the prosecutors, and we were actually able to negotiate a path to a dismissal of the case long before he even stepped into the courtroom for the first time. And this was a phenomenal result given the circumstances. So, there you have it. These are five crucial things every parent needs to know if their son or daughter has been arrested. I hope this episode has given you some clarity on how to navigate this tough situation. Remember, again, the key is to stay calm, protect your child's rights, and get an attorney involved as soon as possible. Thanks again for tuning in to the Justice Drop. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode where we break down the legal issues that matter to you. I'm Jamal Kersey, reminding you to stay informed and stay empowered. Be blessed. Until next time, peace.